If you're a residential agent thinking about getting into the commercial real estate world and you don't know where to start, this video is for you. What I want to be super clear about is that we're going to be speaking about just lead generation around the transition between residential agent or an investor, right? Transitioning into a commercial real estate agent world. Okay, so first things first, you must know where you're going in order to know where you're starting. You need to know what the goal is, because if you want to make 100 grand a year, then you're going to have very different metrics than somebody who wants to make 250, 500, a million plus. Like, you need to know what the goal is, okay? So if you're a residential agent, you've only made ever 50 grand, or a real estate investor, and you've made $1 million before, kudos, right? Like, it's great. However, if you want to know the transition, if you want to know exactly what you need to do in order to make X amount of money on this side, what does X look like? Because if you're like, hey, listen, if I just make an extra 100 grand in the commercial real estate world, I'm happy. Well, then you're going to be probably doing very different metrics than somebody who says, I need to make $1 million this year, no matter what, end of story, because this is what my lifestyle requires. You're going to be doing different things, but you must have an idea of what the goal is in order to make sure you can get started in the right direction. Number two, which is the specifics around getting to where you want to go. We're gonna talk about the core four. Thank you, Alex Hormozy, for coming up with the core four, which is, hold on, let me support my friend, Mr. Alex Hormozy. Go check him out. He's the man. So we're gonna talk about the core four for a moment. Alex Hormozy, check him out if you want more understanding, but I think this is the best way to explain it. Core four when it comes to lead generation is the following. Number one, cold. So cold one-to-many. Cold one-to-many is all about advertising, okay? Paid ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, this ad, whatever it is, mailers, you name it, okay? Cold one-to-many is you're gonna pay some money every month, and you're gonna go, put some type of material together, any type of ad platform that you're utilizing, and you're gonna be spending X amount of money on a daily basis or a monthly basis to perform that ad. If you are transitioning into the commercial real estate world, you must be clear about what you're looking to achieve. If you're looking to make part-time money in the commercial real estate world, then you're probably gonna only need to spend very minimal amount of money. You maybe can find one decent deal, depending on where you're located, okay? I'm not trying to talk poorly about like making 100 grand, okay? It's definitely a decent amount of money. If you're gonna make 100 grand though, in the commercial world in Miami, that might be one property, okay? In New York, that could be half a property. If you're in the middle of the country, right? If you're in Nebraska, you might have to still sell 6 properties a year to make 100 grand in the commercial world. Like, you need to be careful about what you're prospecting for, because it needs to map correctly. One-to-many advertisement-wise, Alex talks about doing 100 minimum metric for any one of these things. So that means if it's paid advertising, $100 a day, and you can do $100 a day across multiple platforms. So that's $100 a day. It could be if you're looking at including weekends, that's $3,000 a month or so. You need to have some decent budget, so you need to be making sure you're making a decent amount of money so you can do the paid advertising the right way. That's cold one-to-many. Now, cold one-to-one is what I focus a lot of my time, energy, and effort on. Cold calling, cold outreach. I try to do 300 reach outs a day, cold calling, 100 cold calls, okay? Or 300 cold calls for me personally. Our minimum metric across all my teams is 400 cold calls a day. If you hate cold calling, fine. That's why I'm giving you the core four. You can do any one of these things, but on a basis of 100 minimum metric. So you could do 100 cold calls. You could be doing 100 cold DMs. You could be doing 100 cold emails. You could be doing 100 anything, okay? Whatever it is. Every single day. Warm. Let's talk about warm. Warm one-to-many. What is warm one-to-many? Content. Posting content on social media just like you're watching right now. Alex talks about doing 100 minimum metric, which is 100 minutes of content every single day. Between live streams, recorded content just like this, shorts, anything you can possibly think of. You could do 100 minimum minutes of content every single day. That could be not only just long form content, but that can also be doing long form posts, multiple posts across multiple platforms. You're going to want to be making sure you're putting out 100 minimum minutes worth of content every single day, or 100 posts a week. You can literally take the same video, just like this, chop it up into a bunch of little things. You post the reel on Instagram, the short on YouTube, you can do a reel on Instagram, and you can do a post on TikTok. So that's 3 posts, plus you can do the long form, so that's 4 posts a day. The point is that if that's all you're gonna do for lead generation, you better do a ton of it, which is exactly why I completely agree with our man, Alex Hormozy. The last one is warm one-to-one, which is your sphere of influence, your database. You gotta go out and meet a lot of people. So you do a metric of 100, which means meeting 100 people a month, new people a month, or reaching out to 100 people every day warm. But you're like, I don't only have 250 contacts in my phone, Henry, how can I do 100? This is why when people try to choose one of these things, I chose cold calling. Cold one-to-one, because I think it's as scalable as possible. I want to be able to reach out to millions of people, okay? That's why I chose what I chose. I'm not saying it's the best one. It's just what works for me. You can choose any one of these core 4 and get after it. Okay, now let's talk about the transition piece, okay? Like, for those of you who are doing something else right now, a lot of you doing residential real estate, you want to, get over to the commercial world. Let's be clear. I'm going to recommend right now, because this is exactly what I did. I went from selling 100 single-family homes a year to now over $100 million per year in commercial real estate. So I'm here to show you that the transition is not only possible, but it's simpler than you realize. What I recommend doing is the 20% rule. Okay, if you're working 5 days a week, that means every single day is 20% of your week. So that means you start with 20%. So you start with 1 day a week, you prospect for a commercial. And then once you get one deal under contract, you start doing 2 days a week, or 40%. You add a 20%, okay? You start with 1 day, then you add a second, then you add a third, you add a fourth, you add a fifth. So I would never, ever recommend that if you're doing residential real estate or you have another job, whatever that is, and you want to transition to the commercial real estate world, play the 20% rule. Take 20% of your time, allocate it, get a deal under contract, make some money, close the deal, make some money, now another 20%. So now you're doing 40% after you closed your first deal. Now you're gonna have 40% of your time and then 60% of your time, because you're not gonna wanna take 100% of your time over here, cold turkey, go to zero, and then get into this world. It just does not work like that, okay? No matter what, I would definitely recommend, if you're only making 50 grand a year, then you're gonna probably need a job at night, and you can solely do the 20% during the day. If the residential agents right now are making 500 grand a year, $1 million a year, you don't just cold turkey, you do 20%. Now 20%, 1 day a week. You choose a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, a Wednesday, a Friday, who cares? You choose a day of the week, and then you spend a good portion of that day when you're doing your prospecting hours, your 3 hours, your 5 hours, whatever you're doing, you prospect for commercial real estate during that day. And you do that every single week consistently until you get a deal under contract, and then you can slowly transition into 20% more, 100%. So you're gonna slowly convert until eventually you're doing 100% commercial real estate like I am today. Number 4, what you prospect for, you will sell, and what your buyers buy, you will sell to them. If you're hypothetically prospecting for 5-unit multifamily properties, and you're like, I like to do commercial, I'm a multifamily guy, I'm selling 2 to 4 families, let me start with 5 units. If you're starting to prospect for 5 units, you're only ever gonna sell probably 5-unit properties, right? Like whatever you're prospecting for, you're gonna sell a lot of it. If you wanna make a lot of money, you need to sell very big things or a lot of little things. I don't wanna have to rely on selling hundreds, if not thousands of transactions to make tens of millions of dollars a year. My goal is I'm gonna do whatever it takes to earn like $100 million plus a year in commercial real estate as an agent. The best way to influence that is to sell more expensive stuff. So that's why we focus on the $2 to $20 million range, because it has a very high turnover factor, right? There's a lot of volume in that price points. And when you're selling a lot of $10 or $20 million properties at 4, 5, or 6% commission, like we're doing a deal right now, $14, $15 million deal at 3.5% commission. It doesn't take a lot of those. That's a $500,000 commission check, by the way, if you did the math. Like, it doesn't take a lot of those to do every single month to make a lot of money. That's why I recommend to you, if you're calling 5-unit properties when the average price point of that deal is 400 grand or 800 grand or whatever it is, you know how many deals you have to sell at 3% or 6% in order to make a lot of money? A lot. Make sure you're checking the list of what you're prospecting for, because you're gonna sell whatever you're prospecting for. So when it comes to also the buyers that you're working with, if your buyer that you're working with right now, if they're like, hey, I'm looking for a $1 to $2 million retail center between 4 and 20 stores, that's great. But that means if you come across a 30,000 square foot retail center that's $5 million, they're not your buyer. And you can relate that situation to any type of asset class. You need to be cognizant of the type of buyers you're working with and making sure you're prospecting for that type of asset class, that type of property. And number 5, when it comes to lead gen, is the consistency factor. How consistent are you in your business when it comes to lead generation? One thing that I try to do every day is lead gen, more than anything. It's just like working out. It's just like drinking water, okay? It's part of my lifestyle every single day. I must be prospecting, do at least 300 calls a day, every day, 2 leads a day, every day. That's my minimum metric every single day. I want to make sure that I'm prospecting for a couple hours every day. My minimum is try to do 2 to 3 hours and a minimum of 300 calls. I try to average that for every single week on a daily basis. 300 calls a day, 2 leads a day, every day. If you do that for a long enough period of time, it is very hard not to sell properties. However, the biggest mistake I see people making is that they spend 30 minutes, maybe an hour every day, if that, maybe spend a couple, like they really spend way too little time prospecting. And then they're like, Henry, how come I don't have any deals? How many hours a day are you prospecting for consistently? And how long have you been doing that for? I've been prospecting for 30 minutes a day, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. On average, my sales teams are doing per person right now 400 calls a person per day. That's a minimum of 4 minimum hours a day every day. That means they're doing for 20 plus hours a week every week. Be freaking consistent with your lead generation, guys. That is what's going to drive the money to your bank account. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A lot of awesome content. And by the way, if you like free resources and if you're wondering exactly what I say during my sales calls, go in the description down below. I got my free script book. It's all for you, all for free. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.